Do you have a box of fabric offcuts sitting in a cupboard somewhere? Or maybe you've got a treasured garment that you absolutely love, but you haven't quite got round to doing anything with it yet. Well, today I've got a project for you to turn that fabric into something unusual, something a little bit special. I'm going to show you how to screen print onto fabric using some really basic materials. Now, you can do this if you have screen printing equipment at home, but if you don't, did you know that you can use an embroidery hoop, a pair of tights or a piece of net curtain, and a credit card as a squeegee to do some really good professional looking screen prints? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to show you how to do here on the Virtual Village Hall today. So if you'd like to join me, I'm going to pop you down and show you how it's done. So first of all, you will need your design. I've just gone for some text here. I took this from the internet, so you can just print this off. Now, the paper that you need to use for printing, the best stuff to use is what's called plain newsprint. It's the type of paper that you get when you go to the fish and chip shop and they wrap your fish and chips up in. This would be my preferred recommended paper. I don't suggest using printer paper because when you print, it absorbs lots of the water and it breaks down the paper, so you don't end up with a really clear print. So if you can't get hold of this sort of paper, maybe go for glossy paper that's sort of from magazines, that sort of paper, but something that's going to resist the water in the paint just slightly. So you need your design onto your paper in about the middle. You'll also need a craft knife or a pair of scissors or both, a cutting board if you're using a craft knife. You'll need some fabric paint in your choice of colour. You'll need your piece of treasured fabric or your remnant that you've got left over from a sewing project. I would go for something cotton, something that's going to take the paint very well. Also, I've just got a piece of scrap newspaper underneath that's going to stop the print from going through the table and making a mess. Lastly, don't forget you need a screen to print with, and as I said at the beginning, that's going to be made up of an embroidery hoop, either a piece of net curtain or some of the fabric cut from a pair of tights. And for your squeegee, that's the thing that we use to what's called pull the print. That you can just use a credit card or something similar. So I think that's all the equipment dealt with. So let's get started. So screen printing is known as a resist printmaking technique. That means that you need to resist or stop the paint from getting through to your fabric where you don't want it to go. And to do this, we cut a stencil. So that's what I'm doing now. Just really carefully using a craft knife. I've made sure that the safety catch is on. And if you notice, I'm holding it not like a pen or a pencil, because what can happen if you hold it, I mean, this is particularly sharp, so this might actually be okay, but sometimes if your blade isn't sharp enough, if you hold it like a pen or a pencil, you'll end up, oh, there we go, look, you'll end up tearing the paper rather than cutting it. So if you hold it like that and keep it fairly low and cut with just the first 2 or kind of millimetre or so of the blade, not the actual point, you'll get a really nice clean cut, which you'll really want if you are doing this text today. So let me carry on. And while I'm doing this, please do feel free to say hello in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you're printing along today. And are you one of those people like me that have got a bag of fabric that you hide away? Pretend that you haven't got lots of fabric that you're never going to do anything with. Let me know. What fabric would you use for this? Have you got any treasured fabric maybe from a garment that you used to love wearing, or maybe a garment that a loved one used to wear. Can you turn it into something special? Let it see the light of day again. So just take your time with this. You want to be really neat. And if you've just joined us, I'm currently cutting a stencil so that I'm going to be able to screen print with it, using just some really basic items that you might already have at home, or you can get hold of easily or quite cheaply. I'm going to be using an embroidery hoop as my sort of the structure, the frame for my screen, and they can be picked up in charity shops just for probably less than £1, or even if you buy them new, they don't cost a lot of money, maybe just a couple of pounds, and you can get some surprisingly professional results from them. So as you see, as I'm cutting this bit, here's just another little tip. So rather than moving yourself and getting into trouble and making it dangerous, when you're doing a circular part, keep your blade in, and then you just need to move the paper, and that will make sure that you keep nice and safe and that you get a really good cut, a nice clean cut. So the main bit of the paper that I need to keep is this bit. So the bits that I'm taking out, it doesn't matter if I cut through, if they break, if I cut through them, because they're not the bits that we need. I always find that screen printing is a lot easier to demonstrate than it is to explain. So if you hang on, watch till the end, you'll get to see the print and see how the stencil works out. Okay, so I keep calling it a stencil, but it's not a stencil in the traditional sense of the word, because when you think about it, if you imagine an alphabet stencil, then for example the letter O will have a couple of bridges to keep that circle in the middle. Now with screen printing, because everything lays flat and then we're going to lay a screen on top, the bits that go in the middle, these parts here, part of the A, that is going to stay still for us, so we don't need to cut a bridge. So as I said, not a stencil in the traditional sense of the word. But that bit, that tiny bit there, we need to keep. So I'm going to keep that to one side, make sure I don't sneeze so it blows away, and carry on cutting. So again, I've got a round piece, so I'm moving the paper, keeping the blade in, cutting a little bit at a time. Ooh, keeping the blade in. You go very carefully so I don't rip this bit. That's good. Cool. It's going to be a real test for that little tip. If you didn't get a note of all the equipment and materials that you need for this, don't worry. They're all written in the video caption at the top, so you can go and have a look. You don't have to be scribbling the information down. And you can always re-watch this video at any time. Once the live broadcast is over, it will be available on the Virtual Village Hall to watch on the Virtual Village Hall page. You can watch it again and again. You can pause it when you need to, rewind it, and even share it with your friends, share it into craft groups. Spread the word just how easy screen printing is. When I was at school, I never got to do it. It was only later when I went to college and I did screen printing, because it was always, we always had the equipment at school, but I was always told, oh, it's very difficult. You know, it needs a lot of time, a lot of equipment. But actually, I found out later that it doesn't. It's actually a very old printing technique. You may have heard of it being called silk screen printing, and that's because originally they used silk to put over just a wooden frame, pulled very, very tightly, and that's how they would have made the frame up. So the fabric or the materials that I'm talking to you about using for your screen, so the types, for example, the very fine net curtain, that's the sort of thing that you're going to need. You need something that's very, very small weave. It's always a good idea so that you can see through it. So go for something like a net curtain, something like georgette or chiffon. They work quite well. Something that you can see through and that you know the ink is going to easily pass through it. Okay, just a tiny bit there. Finish off. Lovely. So that is my screen cut, my stencil cut out. Let's make a little space. Make sure I've got the bit, that piece there. You can still see that. That's the part of the A that I need to put back in. And I'm just going to clear my space so that I've got enough room to be able to print. And you want to print on a good flat surface. It's over here. I'm going to start by putting my newspaper down to protect my table. I'm going to make up my screen. So if you are using a pair of tights, I suggest going for a light colour so that you can see through it. You can use black, but it does mean, or a dark colour, but it does mean that you won't be able to see easily where you're positioning your screen. I would also go for 40 denier. That's a really good sort of denier to use for your screen. So for this bit, I cut off the pants part of the tights, then I cut off the feet part, and then I cut the tights into 4 pieces, so 2 from each leg. then I cut down the side, and that gives you that piece of fabric. I mean, it will depend on the size of your embroidery hoop, but try and make it so that it fits onto your, you've got an embroidery hoop that's going to take this piece of types. So here's a little tip. If you are, sometimes it's a two-person job, but if you are on your own, then here's a little tip for putting the tights onto the embroidery hoop, because they can be a little bit springy. So I loosen the one with the bolt and lay that down first. Just make sure it's going to fit in there nicely. Loosen that a tad more. That's good. Then I take the smaller hoop, place that just over the tights, bring the two sides to the middle, and then with my thumb and forefinger hold it on, twist it round, bring the other side in, switch hands, hold that together, and then bring that side in, and before it all springs off, just nestle that into the embroidery hoop and tighten up the screw. That's it. So that's tight enough, so I'm going to do that a little bit more. And you want to pull it really, really tight, but try not to ladder it. And that's why I suggest using this sort of denier. If you go with a denier of a smaller number, then there's a good chance you will ladder it as you do this part. But the embroidery hoop needs to be very, very tight, and your tights need to be tight too. There we go, that's good. I would suggest not cutting this bit off. If you want, you can just roll it to one side and just pin it down, because if you cut it off, sometimes it can end up springing back, and especially if you're going to reuse your screen, it's going to be a lot easier with this still here, rather than if it's a smaller screen, a smaller piece of fabric. So that's how you make a screen using the tights. If you are using a net curtain, then this is a lot easier, but I thought it's always good to show you a few little tips, little techniques that I've found good along the way. So with this, we're just really like you'd use any embroidery hoop. You have the larger hoop on the flat surface, put your net curtain, piece of net curtain in the middle, make sure you cut it so that it's bigger than the actual hoop. Oh, she says it's easier. Here we go. I think it's because I'm trying to keep it flat all the time so you can see. That's my excuse anyway. Okay, that's it. So yeah, just tighten that up like you would if you were going to go and sew with it, and then pull it really, really tight. That's it. So that is our basic screen. Nice and tight and ready to print. With a piece of newspaper down to protect the table, place your fabric the right side up. Make sure you just remove any bits of thread, because that can actually come out in your print. It's amazingly sensitive. Sorry, put that in the middle for you. Place your stencil onto where you want to print. Add any of those middle pieces. Make sure I've got that the right way up. Yes, I have. Now, if you're very fiddly, you can actually use tweezers to do that bit. If you've got lots of fiddly bits, and then just make sure you don't move it, don't breathe, don't sneeze. And then you're going to place the embroidery hoop with the flat side down on top of your stencil. And make sure it's about in the middle, because we need some room at either sides so that the paint's got somewhere to go. And I'm actually going to flip this round, because I'm going to print from here to here, because my so-called squeegee, which I've made from just an old AA card, because that is just that width, I'm going to print like that rather than printing two lots like that. So just bear that in mind before you print. Now, this is just fabric paint that I'm going to be using. Make sure you read the instructions on the fabric paint as to how to make it colour fast. Normally it's allowed to dry for 24 hours, and then you just iron it with a nice hot iron for a couple of minutes. That's the normal, but just double check. Then to print, with one hand I hold down the embroidery hoop, hold it really, really firmly, and then I take my card in the other hand, and I'm going to push down at an angle just off of 45 degrees and push nice and hard, bring that towards you, and that's going to push the paint through the holes on your tights or neck curtain, through the stencil holes, and then onto the fabric. I'm just going to do that once more. Try and keep the pressure the same all the way. I'm going to do it a little bit quicker for you this time. That's it. And let's actually one more. There we go. Okay. And then moment of truth. 1, 2, 3. Nice and quickly, just bring up your screen to reveal your print. So that is a really easy way to have a go at screen printing onto fabric. So it's over to you. Do you think it's something that you'll be able to do? Do you have this sort of equipment at home? Can you get hold of it quite easily? We'd love to know if you're going to print with us. And when you do, please do put your photos in the comments. We love it when village haulers take action, and we love to see your creations. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that's inspired you to have a go at printmaking. And please remember to like, comment and share this to other groups that you belong to your friends, so that everyone can have a go. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye.